Alright, hey there, I'm Rob. This is my games presentation for my final major project. This includes all of my ideas planning up until this point. I evidently don't do a lot because it's more of ideas come to me along the way. But I wanted to at least get some initial ideas, designs, etc., just down on the ground as some footwork. Firstly, this is the brief and what I got from it essentially. Here you can see where we have a PEGI 16 rating. I will elaborate on this in further, I believe. May either be a short demo, VFX, or animated short. It mentions here something about high quality assets as well, but that's not listed in the requirements as shown here. Either way, we're going to be focusing on the short game demo, because I personally just love making games. And the main theme being contrast, and I kind of got an elaboration from that. So I just listed off, rattled off a couple ideas based off of contrast, with that being light and dark, funny versus serious versus evil, futuristic versus primitive, real life versus fantasy. My main focuses on this, I wanted to be tonal and thematic, and not so much visual. As much as visual contrast does go a long way, just on a surface layer, it's personally not that engaging for me. But I will still try and include visual contrast in the final project, just to add, just to round up all the bases. These were some AI generated ideas to jumpstart the initial creative flow. I believe this one we will come back to, because this was what I was going to use as one of my final ideas, because I thought it'd be funny though. But with the PEGI 16 rating, I was unsure if I could go with that. Here are a few. Sorry, man, I need a drink of water. Here are a few stylization contrasts. Well, I say stylization, it's more thematic contrast. Tonal contrast, that's what I was going for. Previously, these were thematic. This is tonal, which is bright happiness versus moral decay, innocence versus brutality, and then hopeful sci-fi versus existential sci-fi, which, for example, of those two, because those can get mixed, is Star Trek versus Black Mirror, or Alien, for example. My game ideas, based on, I should say thematic contrast, but hey ho, I completely missed that. The nuclear warfare simulator, which was the AI idea. First idea was made by AI. I personally don't like using it, so that may have put me off the idea, but there was also the fact that that may violate the PEGI 16 rating, which is why I completely wiped it off the board. IRS dungeon raids a lich in order to serve him his tax arrears. I thought this was completely funny because of the, as mentioned earlier, real life versus fantasy, and I just find this really funny, and I will, when I do make the demo, I will treat this with complete seriousness, tonally wise, despite the initial silliness to it. Caveman flying a steampunk gondola. Let's try and keep it in the air and not crash. This was also really funny, and I would also treat this with complete seriousness. But each idea is of major thematic contrast, each being silly in their own right, and again, treat it with 100% seriousness, contrasting their initial silliness to everything. First idea, AI. The second idea for the IRS joke was Tuesday night. I was hanging out with my friends, and one of them, medieval history buff, and a former student of this course. One of them, the former student, said to keep it simple, and then the medieval history buff threw in the whole kind of what if you went to a medieval game, and then I just kind of built on it from there, throwing in the silliness of the IRS. And then the third and final idea was inspired by a game called Guns of Icarus, which I used to play all the time. And I love the steampunk genre as a whole. Got my final choice here, which was, of course, IRS does a dungeon raid. Thematic contrast is funny enough, game's terminal contrast is good enough. Also seems easier to just get around and do, you know? Landed on realism versus stylization as my thematic as my tonal contrast. Actually, no, visual contrast. Sorry, I get all three mixed, but don't worry. Essentially, what I'll do is I'll have the game looking like a normal game, right? But I'll have actual hands placed over everything else in like in a HUD display, like how TF2 will show the GIFs and images above everything else, in order to have it so that, you know, kind of just gives the, it allows me to add the realism to it, because I can't do natural realism because that would require a lot of time and effort. I have been told that there are a bunch of design similarities. While the obvious being TF2, in terms of the way that I'm going to lay out the HUD, I have also been told that my concept art is reminiscent of Nightmare, which was an old puzzle TV show, which is purely coincidental, but has inspired some ideas for traps and designs and such. And I've also, the HUD may also be reminiscent of Old Doom, but that's because I do quite like the style of Old Doom and Wolfenstein from the overall layout. Overall layout, surrounding, and movement, because I like the little head bob they do. Skills I have: basic Unreal coding, basic side-scrollers coding tips, interactive object coding, enemy coding. And the skills I need are far greater, with advanced HUD creation, weapon creation, Unreal animation, the ability to create the uncanny, which is not exactly a skill, but it might as well be in this case, creating 2D creatures in 3D environments. Potentially, if I want to lean into the Wolfenstein Doom element, but I'm kind of leaning against that in hindsight. And how to work the code behind an arena shooter, because I want this to be more of a run and gun. Is my idea original? I personally think it is. If it already exists out there, I haven't heard of it before. It's as original as it's going to get. These are some final notes that I placed here for my game, just because I want to get some wording and terminology down, so I can have everything correct. And I'm now realizing this is the old PowerPoint, I think. Oh well. Any questions?
It's interesting. I haven't thought of any questions off the top of my head.
Means I've done my job well.
Have you looked up the game Nightmare?
I have looked up the TV show, and I did see the pilot episode, I believe. It's on YouTube, so I watched through the whole thing.
Okay. Do you have any plans for any features like varying difficulty or like how the player progresses in the game? Or
Not in the current demo. No. If I do make this a full game, then I will have it as time goes on. Enemies will get more difficult. It's a difficulty map.
Would that be represented by like a style of the game changing, like realistic to that?
Repeat that, sorry?
Would that be represented by like a style of the game changing, like realistic to fantasy?
Because I will be the kind of model for it. No, unfortunately. If again, full game comes out, maybe. Yes, Dimitri.
Will the other characters be animated in the same way as the player?
No. The other characters in this will be like fantasy creatures, like goblins and skeletons and such. So they will hold the stylized element to them.
Are you planning to model those yourself, or are you going to be acquiring some assets?
I will grab them from Mixamo for the demo, but I will, if I do make this a full game, I would model them myself, obviously.
Would you animate them like? Would it be choppy animation?
Hopefully in the full game choppy animations, but I have to learn how to properly animate in Unreal. So overall, it's give or take if I even add animations for the demo.
I was going to say, what is the key kind of core objective for the player in a level or in the world when they play the game?
It's simply just to keep going throughout the difficulty curve until you get to the final boss, in which case would be the Lich and giant boss fight, where you surf in tax papers. Your tax arrays, I think the term is called again.
I see. So pursue the tax evader,
Mhm.
and then the tax evader is actually the boss.
Yes.
Okay, sounds cool. Any more questions?
Because of my taxes, I gain money from the levels. I need to gain something.
Killing enemies, no, but there will be objects scattered around which you can repossess in order to foot the bill. Dimitri.
Do you plan on animating the enemies, or do you just plan on using pre-set animation?
As I said when it came to his question based on choppy animation and such, full game yes, demo no.
Understood.
I will again have the player be animated for the demo, but that's very, very, very weakly.
Understood.
Any more on this side?
So, will it be, when you die, will you respawn like in the zone, or will you have to restart?
I wanted it to be more run and gun, so maybe a checkpoint or two, but most probably what will happen is you'll start from the beginning.
Okay.
All your stuff gone.
All stuff gone. Reset.
So very sort of old school, retro style difficulty.
Almost arcade-like.
That's fine. My final question really is just about the setting. What do you have in mind for the setting, or is that something to be determined?
Purely fantasy setting, right? Because I want the contrast to be fantasy setting, but have modern elements of it, which is what would inspire the IRS to be in the fantasy setting in the first place.
So are we talking city then, or sort of town?
It would be like an underground dungeon kind of bit.
Right.
Does that make
Yeah, I
sense?
can imagine like a dragon's horde sort of layer. I
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, would there be cutscenes?
Huh?
Would there be cutscenes to narrate it?
Cutscenes to it. Full game, yes. Demo, no. Yeah. Again, I'm trying to keep this as bare bones as possible so I can
That's
meet
fair
the
enough.
deadline.
Yeah. Okay. Any others before we wrap up? I think that's a good shout for stopping it here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Yeah.